Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of two daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Congress Every Day. Today we're diving into a highly debated issue that's been making waves in the world of sports. In a recent discussion, Senator Ted Cruz took a firm stand on Title IX, women's sports, and the impact of transgender athletes in female categories. This conversation has sparked intense debates, and we're going to break it all down for you today. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our latest content on this important topic.
SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this and I say, why? And at first, I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's,
Let's get into it. First off, Senator Cruz discusses the significance of Title IX, a landmark civil rights law passed in 1972 that expanded opportunities for women and girls in sports. This law was a game changer, opening doors for women in competitive athletics from high school to college sports. Without Title IX, we wouldn't have seen the incredible rise of women's sports over the last few decades, but Cruz argues that this progress is now at risk due to policies that, in his view, undermine women's sports. Cruz isn't holding back in his criticism of the Democratic Party's stance on transgender athletes.
"Well, we're just doing this in chronological order." To which I further pressed and I said, "Okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T, so what are you being chronological about?" To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, "We have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story."
Now let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes
athletes competing in women's events. He believes that allowing biological males to participate in women's sports is unfair and erodes the progress made for women's opportunities in athletics. He calls it radical legislation that he says threatens to destroy girls and women's sports across the country. Next, let's talk about Miss Gaines, a former NCAA All-American swimmer and someone who's bravely speaking out on this issue. Gaines recalls an incident during the 2022 NCAA Championships where she tied with transgender swimmer Leah Thomas in the 200 freestyle. But instead of sharing the trophy, the official handed it to Thomas, citing the need for a picture, leaving Gaines empty-handed. This moment became a turning point for her in the debate over fairness in women's sports. Gaines wasn't afraid
causes
to question.
irreversible advantage. That no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
I mean, what I can say is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition
Okay, I'm
happened,
going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference
Afraid
between
to
women
question the decision, and in doing so, she's become a powerful voice in this conversation. In a heated exchange, Cruz asks Gaines if there's a biological difference between men and women in sports, and she doesn't hesitate in her answer. She explains that physical advantages like lung capacity, larger throats, and height give men an edge, especially in sports like swimming. She argues that no amount of training can overcome these inherent advantages gained through puberty. This biological reality, Cruz asserts, is why women's sports need to exist in the first place. Senator Cruz also engages with Ms. Robinson from the NCAA, pressing her to explain why women's sports should exist if there's no difference between men and women. Robinson's response? She tries to avoid a direct answer, instead focusing on the NCAA's existing rules, which are a topic of much debate. Cruz submits an article showing how top male athletes outperform even the world's best female athletes, further reinforcing his point that the current policies are creating an uneven playing field. So, what does all of this mean for the future of women's sports? If policies like those supported by some Democrats continue, will young girls have the chance to compete fairly? The debate is far from over, and it's clear that the outcome will have major implications for athletics across the country. What do you think about this issue? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.